Hey everybody, it's Dr. Eric Shoemake. This is Burnout to Breakthrough, my web class on adrenal burnout. So if you're watching this right now, chances are you're probably dealing with adrenal burnout or think you might be, which basically looks like fatigue. And I'm going to go through the symptoms in a few minutes, but fatigue, overwhelmed, exhausted, anxiety a lot of times. You get sick a lot more often. So if you've listened to my podcast, you've probably heard a little bit about this, but I want to go a little bit deeper dive to help you understand what the problem is. And I want to tell you this from the beginning. If you're feeling burnt out, number one is don't be embarrassed by it, because I have a lot of people that have brought this up to me saying, look, I haven't told this to anybody else, but I just don't feel like I'm on my game anymore. You know, like I don't know who to even tell. I don't know if I want to tell my wife or tell the people that work for me. So that's number one, is this is a normal thing and you can overcome it. And number two is, I'll tell you, it's not your fault. The way things are set up in our society, especially if you're like a type A driven person, then you're set up, you're kind of pre-wired for this adrenal burnout. But I'm here to tell you there is hope and there is a way out and there are answers, and that's what I'm going to give you today in the next few minutes. So we're going to cover three questions. The first is, what is burnout? What is adrenal burnout? Number two is, how does it feel? And the last one is, what causes it? And then give you some solutions on what you can do about it. So what is it? How does it feel? And what causes it? And what I'll tell you from the beginning, in terms of, before I get into what it is, it's horribly underdiagnosed and unrecognized. It's been estimated that up to 80% of Americans are dealing with some type of adrenal burnout, but no one gets diagnosed with this. And the reason for that is there's no blood test for it. So you go to the doctor can't tell you what's wrong. Maybe they'll say you have anxiety or you're depressed or you have low testosterone or something like that, but they don't tell you what to do about it, and they're not even able to find a real cause of the problem. And the reason you're not hearing about it on the news or a halftime of the Super Bowl with an ad is because pharmaceutical companies aren't getting rich because there's no drug that can fix adrenal burnout. So you're not hearing about that like you're hearing about all these blockbuster drugs. So it's really, the system is set up against you, especially if you're kind of a type A driven person. No one's going to give you answers. And that's why I even started this podcast, is because you need answers. I needed answers. When I had my crash in 2015, my adrenal crash, I thought it was a million different things. I started getting sick all the time, so I didn't know what that was. Then I started dealing with a lot of anxiety, and I didn't know what was going on in my body, so I had to start becoming my own doctor. So not only was I treating patients, I was actually treating myself, and I figured it out, and I was able to come out of that pit that I was in, where I was just exhausted, overwhelmed, I was sleeping really badly, negative a lot, and I just didn't feel like myself. I didn't have my mojo. Well, I got that back, and that's what I'm going to try to do for you today in this web class. So let's discuss the first question right here. What is it? So physiologically, like what's physically happening in your body? Because this is not all in your head. And a lot of times you feel like you're going crazy, but this is not all in your head. There's something physiologically causing these problems, these list of symptoms I'm going to go through in a minute. The first thing that's going to get affected is your cortisol levels. Okay? Cortisol levels are made by your adrenal glands. The adrenal glands sit right on top of your kidneys. They're little tiny glands about the size of your thumb. And they are very important, though, because they create a chemical and hormone balance in your body, specifically one of these called cortisol. Now, cortisol, I want you to think of, if you've heard of adrenaline before, cortisol is that. Cortisol is your stress hormone. And it's a good thing, so I want you to think of cortisol as like packets of energy. So when you wake up in the morning, you should have higher levels of cortisol. And when you go to bed at night, you should have lower levels of cortisol, because you don't want a lot of packets of energy at night. You want them in the morning. So when your cortisol levels get burnt out because of this adrenal burnout, and really, I'll get into what causes this in a few minutes, but it's really stress, different types of stress is what causes this. So when you have high levels of stress all the time, or a high baseline level of stress, and a lot of that can be, like I said, your personality, it could be traumas, it could be food, it could be a lot of different things can cause this, but whatever's going to cause the stress on a level that's higher than it should be is going to affect your cortisol levels. So when you have cortisol imbalances, generally what this looks like is you're tired a lot, you're fatigued. And I'll go into that in just a second with how it feels. But the first thing that's going to get affected is your cortisol through your adrenal glands. So remember that, and we'll dive into that a little bit more in a minute. The second thing that's going to get affected are what we call neurotransmitters. Okay? Neurotransmitters, you've heard of these before. These are serotonin, dopamine, GABA, epinephrine, norepinephrine. If you've heard of any of those, serotonin is really the one that's most popular because there is a drug that does something about serotonin. So you see the drug commercials. The problem is all those things have a million different side effects, which you see in the second half of all the drug commercials. But if you've heard of neurotransmitters, those are the things, the chemicals in your brain that make you happy, that make you balanced, that make you motivated, that help you sleep. They're very important chemicals. They're basically the way that you experience the world. And if these neurotransmitters are out of balance, then you're going to have a lot of different types of symptoms. It could be depression, anxiety, agitation, sleep problems, lack of motivation, a lot of these things. And the way the neurotransmitters work is you have some that are like a gas pedal and you have some that are a brake pedal. So just like driving your car, if I go get in my truck and I drive home only on the gas pedal and I never use the brake, I'm gonna get somewhere real fast, but I'm gonna run into a tree, right? And if I never get out, if I go in the parking lot and I don't put the gas pedal on at all, I just get on the brake, I'm never gonna leave the parking lot. So think about how that would look in your life. If you have too much gas pedal, the neurotransmitters are too jacked up over here, then you're going to have what? Anxiety is going to be a big one. Agitation, irritability, like things that used to like not stress you out, now you get really stressed out. You feel like you're overwhelmed, you can't handle things anymore. That's generally going to be too much gas pedal. Now too much brake pedal is going to be the other side. Fatigue, depression, like you just don't care as much, motivation is down. So if those aren't in the right balance, that's going to affect your world in a big way. So these two things being imbalanced are going to cause you to feel a certain way. So what are the hallmarks of this adrenal burnout? Well, the very first thing is going to be fatigue. Okay, that was my first big sign that I was having my crash in 2015, is I was tired all the time. And I don't mean just like I was a little bit tired, I mean that I could not get it together. Like I would wake up in the morning, it was hard for me to get out of bed for the first time in my life. I mean, I was somebody that got up at 5:30 every morning, I went to the gym, you know, I was just crushing it. And then I started like feeling like, man, I'm wearing out my snooze button, like, because I don't want to get out of bed. And I'd finally make myself get out of bed, and I'd finally wake up really by about 10 o'clock when my brain started working. And then after lunch, and this is another hallmark, is you have this after lunch or this mid-afternoon crash. So a lot of people are really dependent on caffeine, coffee, energy drinks, those types of things to keep your energy up, and that's a sign that your cortisol levels are declining, okay? So you have fatigue, and then you have this, what I call the 2 p.m. crash. And my 2 p.m. crash is like I would want to go out, or I would want to find a bed, lay down, because my brain just didn't work anymore. Like I was wrecked. I was yawning all the time. I was in meetings and I was just an absolute mess. So fatigue is one of the hallmarks, okay? Second one, which I see a lot of people, a lot of men dealing with, is anxiety. So anxiety, and for me, I was waking up feeling like this sense of dread. And it was a strange thing because nothing was wrong in my life. I had practice was going great, my family was going great, you know, things were going really well, but I would wake up and I would just feel like this heavy weight on my chest and I didn't know what was happening. I was really confused. And so I would start running through my day and thinking of like, oh man, I don't want to face that challenge. Or I don't want that. Oh man, this might happen, that might happen. Oh my gosh. And I had this strange sense of anxiety, which was very weird for me. I never had that before. I also hear a lot of other men tell me about, or women for that matter, tell me about like panic attacks or anxiety attacks, where it might not be a full-fledged panic attack where your body completely shuts down, but you start like freezing up. A good friend of mine I was helping this with a summer ago was telling me, he said, I was at a meeting with a client, and like this is where I normally thrive, and he said he was just, he would freeze up and have to like excuse himself and go to the restroom because he felt like he was gonna have a heart attack, like his heart would be pounding and he'd be freaking out. A lot of other people will tell me it's almost like hot flashes or something, but this anxiety starts to happen, and on top of anxiety is negativity as well. My wife told me I was getting hugely negative, and that's normally not me at all. I'm an optimistic person. I believe I can kind of climb my way out of anything, but I was complaining a lot and I was just really negative. So if that's you and you're feeling that more, then that may be a sign that you're having a problem with these neurotransmitters. So anxiety or negativity is a big one. One of the first things that I got, and this was a huge key for me, was I was getting sick a lot. So I was feeling like I would get colds and flus. I went probably 6-7 years with no illness whatsoever. I didn't even have a cold or a sniffle. So and my immune system has been great for 20 years. But I'd say 5-6 years ago, I started getting like a cold or a flu, and it would stay there. I would keep it for 3-4 weeks, and I just got so sick of coughing at night. I remember I went out to LA, and I was we were out there. It was going to be, I was taking almost like a sabbatical from work. And I was like, I'm gonna really enjoy my time, and I had 3 weeks where I wasn't going to work, which was gonna be awesome. And I was out in LA, and I remember we were going checking out Beverly Hills, and I remember I just crashed. I had to get dropped off at an Embassy Suites out by the airport, and I remember that started my kind of downward spiral of getting sick all the time. So I would keep getting sick over and over again. And the reason for that is your cortisol levels. You have to have high levels of cortisol in order to battle illness. So it's very important for your immune system to have your cortisol levels in the right place. Another one is you crave salty foods, because one of the ways that your adrenal glands function is through salt. Okay, so if your salt intake isn't regulated, you're going to notice your adrenal glands start to kick out this. They need salt to function, so they start to kick out this craving for salt. So if you're craving like a whole bag of chips, there's a physiological reason for that. And then the last one, and this is especially for men, is testosterone. Starts to decrease. And when your testosterone levels start to decrease, that's where you lose your mojo. I mean, obviously, sex drive, energy, concentration. Another big one for testosterone is like you're more prone to Alzheimer's disease. So a ton of different things happen when your testosterone levels go down, and you basically just feel less of a man. And I get that from a lot of people. They'll say, "Hey, I just don't feel like I'm the man anymore. Like I used to go into the office and everybody looked to me to be the performer, and I'm just slipping." So if that's you, again, any of these things are happening in your body, then it's time to start paying attention, because what I'm here to tell you is that your body's trying to tell you something. It's trying to get your attention. And we can turn this burnout thing into a breakthrough if you start to understand my body's trying to tell me something's not working in my life and it's not sustainable anymore. Okay? So what are the causes of adrenal burnout? There's a few. So if this makes sense so far, if you're like, yeah, I definitely I feel like I don't handle stress as well as I used to, or I'm tired a lot, I have a lot of anxiety issues, or I'm sick more often, I get the cravings for salty foods, or I'm abusing caffeine like crazy, so I'm drinking 5 cups of coffee in the morning and then a couple 5-hour energies in the afternoon, then what's going to cause it? Because this is what no one seems to ask. You can go to the doctor and get blood work, but no one's going to tell you what's causing the problem. So the very first thing that's going to cause it is stress, and really what I call the type A personality. All right, and the type A achiever. When you're a type A achiever, basically you want to get things done, you want to get them done well, and you're used to handling a lot of stuff. Okay, and what comes along with that is you are an achiever, which means you probably do well in your career. You might be fairly fit, but the problem that comes with a price if you don't ever tone it down. So for me, I always, if I did anything, I wanted to maximize it. I was talking to a client recently, and he was telling me that what caused his burnout, he's like, I wanted to maximize every minute. Like I wanted to make sure I had all the home projects down. I wanted to do really well at work. I wanted to grow at work. I wanted to be the best father I could be. I wanted to be the best husband I could be. I wanted my body to look great, and it was just overdoing all of it. So this type A achiever mentality, and I'll tell you that the 3 words that are going to mess you up more than anything in this type A mentality is these 3 little words that will keep you in the rat race, and they are as soon as. I'll take a break as soon as I have X amount of dollars in the bank. I'll be happy as soon as I get all these new hires trained. I'll take a break as soon as my kids are out of the house. And we're always delaying gratification. We always think, if I could just get here, if I could just get that promotion, if I could just have that car, if I could just have that house, if I could just have this amount of money in the bank, if I could just. And if you live your life that way, the irony is that you're missing what's right now, what's important right now. And when you're missing what's important right now, then that's where you're going to lose out. Because the people that are around you right now, the things that are really important, your family, your kids, if you have kids, those are the things that are really important. When you're on your deathbed, you're not going to care about the car that you drove, or you're not going to care about the promotion that you got. You're not going to care about any of those things. You're going to care about those people. And those are the people that get sacrificed a lot of times in the name of as soon as. So it's about starting to be present and be focused. And that's why I even started the podcast and why I'm doing these videos, because we're going to go through how I was able to overcome this, because I had to start figuring out how I could be happy now. And how I could stop pushing for, if I could just have it then. If I could just, then I'll be happy. Then I won't be anxious. Then I'll spend more time with my kids. Then. I had to start figuring out how to do it now. And if I can do it, I guarantee you can do it. So that's number one. Number two is diet or foods. The foods that are going to cause adrenal burnout, typically going to be caffeine, which is ironic, because most people think, well, I can't function without caffeine. Again, you can't function without caffeine because your cortisol levels are jacked up, but you have to change what you're putting into your body so your cortisol levels will get regulated again. Too much caffeine just absolutely wrecks your cortisol levels. So too much caffeine, but also refined sugar and just processed food. That's also going to basically starve the adrenal gland. So there's some dietary changes that we can make that have a huge impact on your ability to increase your energy level, decrease your anxiety, increase your immune system, all of those things. Another really big one is lack of sleep. Okay, average adult should be getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. Notice I did not say 4 or 5 hours of sleep per night. We're talking about 7 to 8 hours a night. And sleep is so important to your body, because that's where you start to recycle and use these neurotransmitters is in what's called REM sleep. So if you've heard of REM sleep, so not just the band REM, but rapid eye movement, when you're in REM sleep, that's where you're starting to balance out those neurotransmitters again. And that only happens once about every 90 minutes or so. So if you're getting broken sleep and you're not getting into REM and you're not having that really good REM dream sleep, then you're not balancing your neurotransmitters, which is why I was waking up anxious, because I wasn't getting that REM sleep. So lack of sleep is a big one. And then the last one, when it comes to what's causing it, and I see this happen with a lot of people, is trauma. This could be like an emotional trauma, like a divorce, death in the family, sickness with your child, something like that. Or it could be like a physical trauma. So for me, I had a mountain bike accident where I just obliterated my elbow, just completely shredded my elbow, had a really bad surgery, a horrible recovery. It affected my life in a million different ways. And that really, I noticed that kicked in the adrenal burnout. I've seen other people that have had like a failed shoulder surgery, or somebody who's just going through a divorce or whatever. But whatever stress is going to be on your body, whether it's physical or chemical or emotional, whatever trauma that's causing to your body is going to contribute to this adrenal burnout as well. So hopefully it's starting to make sense now. The whole point of this web class is that you get some understanding as to what physically is going on, how it's going to physically make you feel, and what is causing it, so lifestyle. And the reason that we call this movement Burnout to Breakthrough is because I just don't want to help you get back to your old lifestyle and maybe get some energy so you can live your own lifestyle. I want you to listen to what your body's doing and what it's saying, because you need to fix the chemical side of it. You got to fix the physiology. There's something physical going on there. We got to fix that. And we fix that through, there's supplements you could take, there's foods that you can eat or not eat, there's what I call the midday reset on handling your stress. There's a lot of ways to do this, but you have to work on that. You have to fix the physical side of it. You got to fix the burnout. But then to have the breakthrough, that's lifestyle design. And I'm uniquely qualified in this area because not only am I a doctor that's helped a lot of patients with this, I've also gone through this. I'm a type A driven, achieving entrepreneur, just like a lot of you are. So I know what that's like. And so I took some things and I came up with 5 things that I could put into my lifestyle. And if I just did those 5 things, I know I wasn't going to have this burnout. My cortisol levels would be normal. My neurotransmitters would be normal. There's some testing that you can do to find out what your neurotransmitters and cortisol levels look like. I remember my whole life changed when I got that test. So the whole reason that we're doing this Burnout to Breakthrough movement is I want you to understand we can fix the physical side of it, and then we can tweak some lifestyle design to where not only are you back to where you were before, you're better than you were before. That's where the breakthrough comes through. So that's why I started this podcast, and every time we do a podcast, it's just going to be a little 8 to 12 minute episode on something that you can think about today, little tweaks that you can make in your lifestyle today, little tweaks that you can make with what you're eating. One of my first podcasts was talking about what we call the midday reset, which is giving yourself a break and some physiological things you can do for 15 minutes in the middle of the day, including ginger shots. So you can actually do shots in the middle of the day instead of doing 5-hour energy. So just little things that you could start doing to move in the right direction. And that's really the key to this thing, is that if you've been going down, now it's just time to change the direction and give it some time. So that's what Burnout to Breakthrough is all about. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher for the podcast. You can check out our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, Burnout to Breakthrough, to get the resources that you need to turn that burnout into a breakthrough.